Well, I think to a very considerable extent it is accurate. And the main point I'd make is that the old administration, the Liberal Democratic Party government, had, with a short break in the 1990s, been in power continuously for something like 55 years. And it's really got the world record pretty much for length in office of one party in a democratic system. So you've got a situation where the new government wants to break away from the traditions of the old one. It wants to be less beholden to a whole range of vested interests. It wants to be less beholden to the bureaucratic interests, which have been very strong under the old government. That is to say, the government bureaucracy running things. It wants to have politicians running things rather than bureaucrats. And I think it follows from that that it's going to be a lot more open, is already a lot more open in its approach to public opinion and to the media and to people generally than the old administration was. Well, my view is that foreign policy is an area where there will be rather less change than other policies, by contrast with the old administration. Nevertheless, the present Prime Minister, Mr. Hatoyama, has been saying publicly and in articles and so on in the press that he wants to put a bit of distance between Japan and the US, but that doesn't mean breaking off relations or diminishing the importance of the Japan-US Security Treaty, for instance. But the other side of that is that the new government wants to emphasize regionalism in Asia, Japan to be a more active player, participant in regional organizations in Asia, and generally speaking to take a more active part in what is going on in Asia. And this could go in various directions. It's very early days to say just how this is going to develop, but that at least seems to be one of the main intentions of the new government in its foreign policy. Right, well, there's a bit of history here because Prime Minister Koizumi, who was Prime Minister between 2001 and 2006, very seriously alienated the Chinese government by his repeated visits to the Yasukuni Shrine to the war dead. And after Koizumi stepped down, which was in 2006, things did improve. And so this is an improvement which has taken place before the new government was elected. But I think under the new government, there is something of a will to make possible good relations with China. But of course, you know, Japan could be seen as a somewhat declining power and China as a rising power. So there's obviously a problem there, and it's very difficult to see how exactly that will be resolved. But I think the broad answer to your question is that relations with China should be somewhat improved under this government. Yes, I mean, I think there was, when Mr. Rudd was elected and became Prime Minister, there was something of a sea change in relations with Asia. Not only China, but I mean the rest of Asia. I think there's two questions here. Australia's relations with Asia as a region and the extent to which Japan is emphasised within Australia's relations with Asia. And of course the weight of interest nowadays is more on China than on Japan because of the rapid increase in the size of the Chinese economy and all the economic advantages and possibilities and interests there. But I think in fact the new government in Japan is going to make it rather easier to take Japan seriously for Australia. And I think one can already see some signs of that happening. Well, I think there's 2 points I'd make here. One a more general point than that, really, which is that I think the fact that Mr. Obama is President of the United States and obviously has a very, very different approach to foreign affairs than his predecessor, George W. Bush, means that there is a great deal more scope for Japan and other countries other governments in the region to be flexible in relation to their relations with the United States. And it's plain that Mr. Obama, not only in Japan, but you can see this when he went in that famous speech in Egypt, and when he went to Iran, is making a big thing of trying to respect, or be seen to respect, the cultures of the countries he's visiting. I mean, in Iran, he gave the official name of the country, the Islamic Republic of Iran, or whatever it's called. Here in Japan, I think his bowing to the emperor was a recognition of the importance of respect, and bowing as a symbol of respect in Japanese culture. And of course, given that the emperor is greatly respected in Japan, a deep bow to the emperor in Japanese cultural thinking is a very natural thing to do. It may not be so in American thinking, but you know, this is respecting foreign cultures, and I think that's all part of a pattern that President Obama has been developing.